It all starts with a camera recording showing the frightened face of a boy in 1983. The footage gets shaky as a voice thanks a priest for coming to their house. The man explains that his wife is locked in the bedroom so she can't get out. He goes on to say that the woman now looks like a wild animal and can't even control herself properly. Worried, the young man asks what they would do if the exorcism didn't work at all. Ignoring the question, the priest just tells them to go inside and handle the situation. The camera then focuses on the faces of the two men, who seem very nervous about everything. The clergyman remains serious and focused on his mission to help the poor family. Seeing the boy with the camera, the priest asks what he's looking at and tells him to turn it off. The exorcist says the husband will have to help because the ritual requires 2 people to perform. Before going in, Mr. Smith tells his son Jack not to enter the room no matter what. Immediately after, the door closes right in front of the camera, which keeps recording everything. The boy stays outside the room, just waiting to see what might happen in there. Unable to bear the curiosity, the boy opens a crack in the door to take a peek. Looking through it, he sees the priest on the floor, praying to God with an expression of pure fear. The clergyman crawls on the floor, begging for help and shouting for them to open the door. All of a sudden, something starts pulling the man into the darkness of the room as he cries out. After the noise, a total silence takes over the room, and the door remains slightly ajar. A red trail appears on the floor, and the boy calls out for his mother, completely terrified. The camera shows the darkness of the room, revealing the priest's body at the end of the stain. The mother's eyes glow in the darkness as she approaches the fallen priest's body. Desperate, the boy shouts for his mother, but the creature just turns slowly toward him. That thing then leaps towards the boy with bizarre speed, ready to pounce. The recording glitches, showing a close-up of the woman's face before the tape finally ends. Back in the present day, the video finishes playing on an old computer. We see Sheriff Chloe McIntosh, who looks completely stunned by what she just saw. Holding the tape in her hand, she asks if it isn't just a recording from some scary movie. Looking at the evidence, she wonders if something like this can be used as proof in a case. Outside, a heavy rain begins to fall, making the atmosphere inside the police station more tense. The officer leans on the desk, completely shaken by the bizarre information in the report. The file states that the Smith family and a Catholic priest were found lifeless in the house. The main suspect in the case is another priest who was seen at the scene by neighbors. According to witnesses, he fired 2 shots at Mr. Smith's wife to try and stop her. Despite denying the accusations, the man was taken into custody due to the many testimonies against him. However, the sheriff continues reading the file and realizes there's something very strange about the story. It turns out that the one who took the lives of Mr. Smith and his son was actually the wife. The woman also had no history of psychiatric treatment registered under her name. While thinking about the case, a mysterious figure silently appears behind the officer. The officer gets such a scare that she throws all the papers from her desk into the air. The nun then apologizes and says she saw her concentrating and decided to wait. Still startled, the officer says it's okay but asks who she is, as strangers are not allowed inside. Suddenly, a superior calls the officer and asks her to come to him for a moment. The sheriff seems annoyed to learn that the nun came from Rome, from the Vatican, to get involved in the case. Her boss explains that they came to retrieve the priest's body and also take the suspect. He tells her not to get cocky with her rank and just follow the orders that came from above. The chief explains that they've assigned someone, and the young woman asks who it could be since everyone is busy. In front of the cell, she introduces herself as Chloe, the one in charge of supervising his parole. She warns the nun to be careful because Mr. Burns has not yet been cleared of the charges. From inside the cell, the prisoner lights a lighter, illuminating the area with its flame. The nun smiles from the outside and says that they have finally met face to face. He is Vincent Burns, a former exorcist priest who now works as a demonologist. Standing in front of the cell, the officer looks tired while the nun remains calm. The man then asks why the Vatican is looking for him after all this time. The nun explains that her mentor, Father Andres, sent her because he needed his disciples' help. The exorcist finds it strange that the head of the Vatican would ask a defrock priest for help and asks what he does. The nun then reveals that his mentor has already passed on, and the man is surprised by the news. She explains that in the last 3 days, a total of 56 exorcist priests have been taken down. Because of this, the Vatican decided to suspend exorcism rituals until they find out the cause of the problem. The man realizes that almost half of them are gone, which is why the requests for him have increased so much. The nun says she heard that he now calls himself a demonologist and has his own office. The nun then makes an official request, asking for the man's help to resolve the situation. The priest throws his cigarette on the floor, surprised by her request, and asks if it's really a request. Sitting in his cell, he questions if she's sure, as his services are very expensive. The nun says that if he does the job right, she will reward him very well for it. She swears in the name of Beatrice of the Trappist monastery that she will give him anything he wants. The officer is shocked by the nun's promise and wonders what this anything could be. Seeing the good offer, the exorcist agrees, and his cell is finally opened. Already outside, he asks them to buy him a drink and get the keys to his car as well. With the bottle in hand, the man takes a sip of the drink to relax a bit. The nun explains that the first mission is in a village that has been dealing with a sickness for months. Many doctors and priests were sent, but all contact with them was mysteriously lost. Vincent's mission is to save a boy who is still alive inside that village. Inside the car, Officer Chloe angrily asks why she's the one who has to drive. The exorcist replies that he doesn't have a license and asks if she'd prefer him to drive while intoxicated. The young woman yells that he shouldn't be drinking and asks if he's aware of the situation he's in. She warns him that if he tries anything suspicious, she'll send him right back to prison. They arrive at the mission location, which is a church on top of a hill with a cemetery. Inside, a woman explains that her son first went after the dog they were raising. After that, he started going after people and breaking all the objects in the house. She shows her injured ear, saying that the boy also hurt her during an outburst. The exorcist tells the officer to get some tools from the car, and she doesn't understand at all. The officer then asks the mother where the child is, and the woman replies that he's upstairs. Outside, the priest grabs a heavy case that was stored inside his car. Looking at the symptoms, he confirms that the boy is possessed by a demon that lives in the church. Holding an axe, he says he'll leave the rest to her, but the nun asks if he's not going in. The nun says she'll wait in the car while the man looks at the gloomy church ahead of him. Upstairs, the officer looks terrified by the scene and wonders what that is. The camera focuses on the boy's face, who is lying down, looking very sick and weak. Lying on the floor amidst the debris, the young woman begins to cry softly from fear and pain. The boy appears on the second floor railing and asks the sister to save him from the situation. Suddenly, the officer feels a sharp pang in her body and cries out in pain from the attack. When she looks at her hand, she sees several disgusting grubs coming out of her skin and is horrified. The officer panics and starts screaming while shaking her arm to get the bugs off. The strange creatures squirm on the floor and seem to have bizarrely muscular arms. The exorcist arrives and simply steps on one of the bugs, crushing it on the floor without a second thought. He says she's making a scene over some insects while the boy is tied to the bed. The young woman yells that the insects are consuming the child, but the priest just keeps drinking. The tied-up boy explains that his mother locked him in the room, and he's very thirsty. The man offers him his drink, saying there's no water there, but he has alcohol if he wants it. The boy also says he's hungry, and the priest replies that he is too and was going to McDonald's later. The possessed boy tells the priest to stop playing around and untie him, but the man just scoffs. With a wicked smile, the exorcist reveals that he doesn't actually have a nephew. The creature deforms completely and lets out a bizarre shriek that echoes throughout the place. The priest throws holy water on the boy, making the creature cry out in pain from the sacred attack. Annoyed by the noise, the man scolds the demon and gets ready for the next step of the ritual. The bottle of holy water glows with an intense red hue, showing its power against evil. With the lighter in his hand, the exorcist lights the flame to begin the next phase of the exorcism. Seeing this, the officer is terrified and tries to stop the priest from going through with the plan. Not caring about the warning, the man throws the fire at the boy, who cries out in agony on the floor. The young woman points her weapon at him and asks how he dares to do that in front of a police officer. The priest then asks if that looks human to her as a fiery demon appears. The creature in flames praises the exorcist, saying he is truly impressive. The fiery skeleton reveals that his name is well known and that demons warn each other about him. The flaming demon stares at the priest with a look of pure hatred and contempt on its face. The creature says it was a mistake for him to come there, and the boy's mother appears behind the officer. With a deformed face, the possessed woman lunges at the officer to attack her. Out of nowhere, the creature's body is thrown far away as if it had been hit by something. The priest then says he knows about her too, as the woman falls lifeless to the floor. He explains that it's a ghoul, a demon that lives in and infects people's bodies. Holding a weapon, the exorcist reveals that there was no one alive in that house from the beginning. The fire demon corrects the priest and says it's not just the house, but the entire village. He asks if the exorcist can handle his army of the departed that appears at the window. From inside the car, the nun observes the scene and is surprised by the number of creatures. A horde of monsters surrounds the church, and the nun comments that the number looks quite dangerous. The officer's bullets fall to the floor, proving completely useless against the demons. The priest says that normal weapons don't work and hands her special ammunition to fight. He warns her that if she wants to live, she'd better focus on the fight ahead. The creatures then invade the church and charge with everything they've got at the two humans there. The priest's scarf flies through the air as he prepares for the confrontation with the horde. Fearlessly, the man jumps into the middle of the crowd of monsters to start the battle for real. The demon asks if he can take it, and the exorcist's body glows with chains of energy. The priest smiles and says he can fight as many as there are, because this is the mission God gave him. A huge monster leads the attack and charges straight at the exorcist without hesitation. With a blade, the man slashes the creature's face in a swift and precise strike. In an agile move, the exorcist manages to remove the monster's head with his weapon. The priest stands in the center of the hall, surrounded by dozens of creatures ready to attack. Another monster smiles bizarrely, but the priest lands a kick right in the middle of its face. The man leaps into the air and uses chains to attack the monsters on the church floor. With a smile on his face, the priest lands in the middle of the creatures and prepares his next attack. The chains move at high speed and destroy several monsters at once. The officer joins the battle and starts firing at the monsters with the priest's special bullets. As she fires non-stop, the exorcist attacks the creatures from the air with his whip. The young woman stands firm in the midst of the chaos and continues to fight for survival. In a moment of carelessness, one of the creatures manages to land a blow on the priest's shoulder. The two team up to fight back to back, firing in all directions. The exorcist seems to be enjoying the battle and fires non-stop with two weapons at the same time. The fire demon is shocked by their strength and can't believe what it's seeing. It doesn't understand how a simple priest can be so powerful as to defeat its army. The priest says it should have listened to what the other demons said about him. Without wasting time, the man charges with everything he's got at the fiery skeleton to attack it. With his energy, he creates a shining cross in his hand to use as a weapon in the battle. The exorcist then drives the cross of light right into the middle of the demon's face with all his might. He introduces himself as a demonologist and says he's not like other normal priests. The man warns the demon not to think it's going back to the underworld so easily. The officer watches everything from a distance, completely exhausted after the long battle she faced. The demon's body begins to be pierced by several crosses of light that appear out of nowhere. The creature is trapped in a crucifixion, and the priest says it will be spending a long time there. Outside, the church continues to be engulfed in flames as the rain falls endlessly on the village. The exorcist says a prayer, asking that the sacrificed souls may rest in peace. He asks that God guide the souls so they can finally reach his kingdom. He asks that now they may finally have a quiet and peaceful rest. So that their passing is not in vain, he promises to continue this fight until the end. The man finishes the prayer, asking for the Lord's mercy and peace for all. After burying the bodies, the exorcist concludes the ceremony with a sincere amen. Officer Chloe then appears with the car, saying she brought it for Mr. Vincent. The priest says he never asked for that, but she insists that he should at least drive the car. The young woman apologizes for doubting him, but the man says there's no need to flatter him. All of a sudden, the skull on his hip starts screaming and calling the exorcist names. The officer gets scared and asks if he hasn't dealt with that thing once and for all. He explains that departed demons return to the underworld, and their end is a trivial matter. The man then presses a cross into the cranium, making the demon cry out in pain and agony. With a smile, he says that demons must suffer for the sins they've committed. Seeing the scene, the officer thinks that this man is definitely not normal. The nun then appears and tells everyone to hurry up for the second request. The young woman regrets offering to drive and asks if they aren't going back. The nun explains that the demons who stole bodies are already on the move. The skull warns that what they are looking for is nearby, and the priest notices something. The scene cuts to them traveling by car on a deserted and dangerous road. The priest is surprised that the Vatican didn't store what the demons want there. The nun reveals that Father Andrews actually wanted to entrust that to Mr. Vincent. The exorcist wonders if it was the same man who expelled him from the church. Curious, Officer Chloe asks for what reason he was expelled from the Vatican. The nun answers with a smile, saying he violated several church taboos. She continues talking about stealing relics and hunting demons in a violent manner. Meanwhile, the priest just watches the road quietly, not caring about the conversation. The nun also mentions that he built an arsenal in the cathedral's basement. Suddenly, the exorcist's eye flashes, and he notices something strange on the road. The man then orders the driver to turn the car immediately, but she doesn't understand. He warns that the road is dangerous as the vehicle takes a sharp turn. The priest insists she turn, but the young woman yells that they're going to fall off the mountain. Without a second thought, the nun simply grabs the steering wheel and yanks it hard. The car skids on the road, performing a very risky and dangerous maneuver. The nun smiles calmly while the other two scream inside the vehicle. In the rearview mirror of a school bus, we can see their car approaching. The bus then speeds up and tries to hit their car with all its might. The nun politely asks the bus driver to stop for a moment. Inside the other vehicle, a demon smiles wickedly and steps on the gas. A giant weapon emerges from the bus door, pointing directly at their car. The school bus hits the car head-on, causing a major collision on the road. The priest smiles and says he was expecting this because he knew they were demons. The school bus door simply flies off from the force of the impact. Out of nowhere, the exorcist jumps from the car and the startled officer shouts his name. The demon at the wheel is shocked to see the man flying in its direction. With a powerful kick, he shatters the vehicle's windshield into 1,000 pieces. The priest then lands inside the school bus, calm and stylish. He says he knew there were demons there, but he didn't expect there to be so many. The bus is completely packed with various creatures sitting in the seats. With his blade in hand, he compliments the monsters on being so well behaved. Smiling, the man says he needs to get in touch with their teacher. He pulls out a weapon to let them know they won't be going to school today. The other creatures are completely shocked by the hunter's sudden move. The flaming skeletal driver grips the steering wheel with all its might. The exorcist then prepares to face the horde of monsters all by himself. The battle begins, and the man attacks the demons with his blade and weapon. He fires non-stop, managing to hit several creatures at the same time. In the midst of the chaos, the priest continues to fight bravely against all the foes. Because of the fight, the bus loses control and ends up going over a cliff. The vehicle plummets down the mountainside, slowly breaking apart. Even as they fall, the exorcist doesn't stop fighting the demons for a single second. In the end, both the car and the bus fall into the abyss together. Even in freefall, the exorcist continues to fight the creatures inside. With a well-aimed kick, he lands a solid blow to one of the demons' faces. A moment later, the bus hits the ground with tremendous force, causing a huge crash. The vehicle slides across the desert, kicking up a huge cloud of dust. From the impact, a mysterious briefcase flies out of the bus. One of the demons then grabs the briefcase and tries to quickly flee the scene. The creature reveals its true form, showing a bizarre and scary face. But the exorcist appears and asks why it's running off like that. He then asks if its escape has anything to do with the briefcase it's carrying. The skull on his hip calls the demon a stubborn and persistent pest. It's shocked that none of the monsters were taken down and asks what trick the priest used. The hunter shouts as he sees the car dangerously making its way down the cliff. The nun says they made it down safely, while the officer looks terrified. The briefcase is now on the hood of the car, and the nun asks if it belongs to the demons. She says it's rare for demons to run away, so the item must be more precious than life itself. The woman then asks them to take a closer look at the briefcase. On it we can see the papal coat of arms, a very important symbol. The nun confirms that this was what they were looking for, but the demons beat them to it. The priest shouts desperately, warning them not to open the case under any circumstances. The skull says there's something in there that humans can't handle, and Vincent asks what it is. The skull replies that it doesn't know what's inside either, and that it's a secret. The priest then squeezes the skull tightly, and it complains that the bosses never tell it anything. Curious, the officer wonders if she should open it to see what's inside. The exorcist says they can just take a quick look, and then close it right back up. Ignoring the warning, the man opens the briefcase, and a bright light shines from inside. The three of them look inside, completely shocked by what they see. To everyone's surprise, inside the case, there's a sleeping girl with white hair. The officer remains very anxious and concerned about the whole situation. She then asks if that could be a body, and the priest confirms her suspicion. He checks the girl's pulse and says she isn't breathing and has no heartbeat. The man questions who the girl is, and the nun says she knows nothing about her. The nun explains that she also heard nothing about the contents of the mysterious briefcase. The exorcist says that the place they were heading to might have clues about the girl. They finally arrive at their destination, which is a dark and abandoned church. In the cemetery, a broken angel statue seems to pray amidst the destruction. The priest looks around and comments that everything there has been completely destroyed. The officer salutes and says she'll wait outside with the girl. She asks the nun for confirmation but realizes the woman has already disappeared. Seeing the two heading for the church, she yells out a warning that there might be demons there. The nun smiles and says that near the exorcist is the safest place to be. Afraid of being left alone, the officer runs and says she'll go with them to the church. Inside, the head of an angel statue is on the floor, with a red substance coming from its eyes. The place is a mess, with several bodies, and the priest kneels beside one of them. The officer says that everyone there is gone, and the nun begins to pray for the souls. The exorcist then asks the two women to investigate the upper floors. Terrified, the young woman says there's no way she's going, as she's too scared. Looking at the body, she notices it's holding something and its organs are pinned. She agrees to go up but warns that they need to help her if she screams. The priest manages to take the object from the man's hand and sees it looks like a notebook. He holds the dirty journal and examines the item very carefully. Sitting down, he wonders if it's just an ordinary notebook or something more. Flipping through the pages, he sees it's a normal priest's diary with nothing unusual. The back of the notebook is souped, making it impossible to read. However, he notices that one of the pages has a slightly different color. The man finds this strange and comments that only that one page seems special. Carefully, he tries to separate the pages to see what's hidden there. Using a lighter, he reveals a secret text that reacts to the temperature. The diary reveals that a mysterious woman appeared to pay a visit. In a memory, we see a priest startled by the arrival of the woman. Seeing her skin turn to stone, he knew right away the reason for the unexpected visit. The diary says she heard whispers and had terrible nightmares. Luckily, the head exorcist priest Andres was there to help with the case. But the solemn exorcism ritual didn't work, and the symptoms only got worse. The priest left 2 boxes and went away, leaving the man very worried. In the end, they locked the woman in the basement, and he asked God for punishment. The exorcist closes the diary and concludes there's a demon in the basement. We see the stairs to the basement and some broken chains on the floor. Meanwhile, the 2 women investigate a dark hallway on the upper floor. The officer feels relieved to find a place with light to clear her head. The nun jokes that there's only light because the windows are broken. Suddenly, the woman stops and becomes alert, sensing something strange in the air. She finds a hidden golden chalice and says it's a sacred relic. The young woman asks how she knows, and the nun says it's her job and she'll give it to Vincent. The woman says they haven't found any clues about the case with the girl. They then decide to go to the last room in the hallway to investigate. The officer stops for a moment and looks back, feeling something is wrong. She then stares at a statue of a woman standing in the middle of the dark hallway. The statue has a very sinister appearance, with a hole in the middle of its chest. The young woman turns to the nun to ask something that has intrigued her. She then asks if the woman noticed that statue when they came up. The officer then asks if the stone statue was already there when they arrived. Suddenly, the statue's face begins to crack, revealing something strange inside. Terrified, the young woman asks if the creature moved as it slowly advances. The stone monster then starts walking towards the 2 women in the hallway. The young woman points her weapon and warns the statue to stop, saying the shot can harm demons. Ignoring the warning, the creature raises its weapon and shouts furiously, ready to attack. Without a second thought, the officer fires with everything she's got in the stone monster's direction. The bullet hits the statue's head squarely but seems to have no effect. The monster cries out in pain, but the shot wasn't enough to stop it. Out of nowhere, the nun appears and attacks the creature with a powerful and very fast kick. Lying on the floor, the nun explains that the monster's skin is too tough for bullets. Meanwhile, at the door of the room, the case with the papal coat of arms begins to glow. The young woman grabs the briefcase and runs desperately, calling for Mr. Vincent's help. She tries to open one of the hallway doors to hide from the stone creature. To her bad luck, the door is locked, and she can't get in at all. Inside the room, a total silence takes over, making everything very tense. Not giving up, the officer tries her luck with another door in the dark hallway. She opens a small crack to peek at what's inside the mysterious room. Suddenly, a hand emerges and pulls her into the room with great force. Terrified, the young woman screams, and through the crack in the door, we see several red eyes watching. Terrified, the officer points her weapon and desperately calls for Mr. Vincent. She begs for the exorcist to come quickly while the briefcase on the floor glows. The case begins to emit a very strong golden light that illuminates the entire room. Inside the briefcase, the mysterious girl finally wakes up and opens her yellow eyes. The girl's eye shines intensely, showing a hidden and unknown power. Downstairs, the priest hears the call and seems to be recovering from something. The scene strangely cuts to miniatures of the vehicles in the middle of nowhere. The skull on the exorcist's hip then calls his name in a dark tone. Annoyed, it complains that it was used as a car ornament by the priest. With a red glint in its eye, it says that demons are treacherous. The skull then reveals that they attack when one's guard is down and releases insects. In the destroyed bus, the insects crawl over the fallen demons on the ground. A voice asks if they want revenge against the human who defeated them. For that, they need to give their bodies to the mysterious creature. A demon's body splits open and the insects enter as Lord Alcar emerges. The creature reassembles itself and promises to fulfill their desire for revenge. Back at the church, the stone statue manages to break down the door with one punch. The officer despairs and yells that at this rate, the monster will get in. The statue lands a blow on the officer, who is unable to dodge the attack. With her hand injured, the young woman cries out in pain from the wound. The officer then grabs a piece of wood from the floor to defend herself from the monster. With a direct hit, she strikes the statue's head, but the attack has no effect. Even injured, the young woman faces the creature with a look of pure determination. The nun embraces her and says it's useless and that this seems to be their end. The woman then suggests they use the relic they found to fight. The golden chalice is full of holy water, a powerful weapon against demons. The nun says to throw the liquid in the face of the monster trying to invade the room. The statue raises its weapon to attack while the officer prepares for a counterattack. The young woman then prepares to throw the holy water at the creature with all her strength. With a swift movement, she hurls the golden chalice towards the stone monster. The sacred liquid hits the statue's face squarely, which begins to react. The creature screams in pain as the holy water burns its stone skin. With a victorious smile, the officer celebrates, thinking she has managed to win. But the statue begins to speak and asks why they didn't save it before. The creature says they turned it into a monster, and now they want to get rid of it. Crying, the statue laments that they abandoned it and didn't help it until the end. Shocked by the revelation, the officer is speechless and feels sorry for the creature. The nun then touches her shoulder and warns her not to be fooled. She explains that it's just a demon imitating a human's memories. Smoke comes out of the statue's head, and it remains standing at the door of the room. The nun explains that a possessed person who has lost their chance can never become human again. She tells the officer that if she truly cares for the creature, she should let it go. The young woman then picks up another sacred object to use against the stone demon. With a cry of anger, the officer charges to attack the statue with the golden item. The furious creature calls her a fraud as it brings its axe down with full force. The statue's weapon collides with the sacred object, which begins to crack from the impact. The officer uses all her strength to hold back the monster's attack, but it seems she won't last. The golden item shatters, and an intense light begins to shine from within it. Smoke starts coming out of the object as the light grows stronger and stronger. A large explosion occurs, raising a huge cloud of smoke in the area. In the middle of the dust, the officer covers her face to protect herself from the debris. Slowly, the pieces of the statue's head fall to the floor, completely destroyed. The young woman smiles in relief and tells the nun that they finally managed to win. But the woman screams desperately, warning that the fight isn't over yet. She tells the officer to get out of there as fast as she can before it's too late. The girl looks down and notices something strange emerging from the floor. From the remains of the statue, a bizarre and disgusting creature with an exposed brain appears. The monster then opens its mouth and fires a yellow energy beam in her direction. The officer is hit head-on by the attack and screams in pain from the impact. The creature furiously complains about them throwing disgusting holy water on it. The monster asks why she has the case meant for Lord Mill, and the young woman screams for Vincent. A disgusting yellow slime then covers the officer's mouth to stop her from screaming for help. The creature warns that it's no use calling, as the priest won't come to save her. In a memory, the demon shows that the priest only noticed its presence when it was too late. The creature enjoys seeing the completely terrified eyes of the defenseless young officer. It reveals that it liked the priest's eyes, and now it's going to take hers for its collection. Suddenly, a mysterious man appears out of nowhere holding a blood-stained axe. The masked man then asks if Mill is the demon organizing all this mess. One of the monster's eyes approaches a vial on the floor that seems to be holy water. The man in the suit then appears in front of the creature with a very intimidating aura. Without hesitation, the man advances with his flaming axe to attack the disgusting monster. He walks and comments that this Mill must be a very high-level demon. The man deduces this because he sees demons like that one following the orders of this so-called boss. With a very serious look, the masked man demands to know what the creature's plan is. The monster is shocked and remembers it had hit his head with an axe before. Furious, the creature promises that this time it will deal with the man once and for all. In the meantime, the nun uses some nails to try to exorcise the possessed officer. Suddenly, several sharp tentacles pierce the man in the suit's back. Even wounded, the man scoffs at the attack and tells the monster to try harder. Looking at the creature, he asks with disdain if that was the best attack it had. The monster is in shock as the man holds the tentacles piercing him without any trouble. With a calm look, the masked man says that enduring that kind of attack is not difficult at all. He explains that after fighting so many demons, his wounds heal on their own. Just as normal humans can't harm demons, the tentacles shatter. The masked man reveals that, in the same way, the disgusting creature can't harm him either. Meanwhile, the nails holding the possessed officer begin to come out of her body. The nun observes everything and finally seems to understand what's happening. She realizes why Father Andrews sought help from a man like Mr. Vincent. The woman remembers there are records of humans who gained powers by hunting demons. Seeing the creature's eyes on the floor, she concludes that Vincent is no ordinary human. The masked man stands with a powerful and frightening aura around him. In a flashback, a voice says that Vincent Burns can't defeat the demons alone. The man in the vision warns that the army of the underworld will bring the end, and Vincent challenges him. The hunter holds a jar with an eye inside and tells it to bring its army on. He offers to go to the demon's boss, but the creature in the jar refuses to talk. The masked man doesn't like the answer and throws the vial to the nun who was nearby. He calls her a bartender and tells her to shake the jar until she gets some useful information. The nun smiles and starts shaking the vial vigorously while the eye screams inside. The now recovered officer looks at Vincent with an expression of astonishment and admiration. She then wonders if Mr. Vincent is truly a human being. Vincent answers the officer with a simple, "Who knows?" without turning to her. He then smiles and reveals that he has prayed to become anything in order to fight. The man turns to leave and warns them not to forget to take the case with them. The officer picks up the briefcase and is surprised because the object is much lighter than before. Upon opening the case, she realizes there is absolutely nothing inside it. Vincent turns and confirms that the child is gone and asks if she watched the case properly. The young woman assures him that she had the briefcase with her the whole time and didn't lose sight of it for a second. Meanwhile, the nun holds a small box that seems to have something inside. Suddenly, the mirror behind them shatters and reveals a scene from the past. The scene changes to 5 minutes earlier, showing a church in the middle of nowhere. A being with a skull for a head says they will attack the demonologist, now that he's distracted. The leader with the skull in hand explains the plan to his army of zombie demons. He reveals that the target's vehicle is full of explosives that they will use. The order is to install the bombs in the church and blow up the entire building. One of the demons asks with concern if the item they want won't be destroyed along with it. The leader assures them that the object cannot be destroyed except by a special method. He then orders everyone to hurry up and install the bombs as quickly as possible. With a wicked laugh, he says he's going to turn Burns into a minion for him. He laughs uncontrollably as a little girl with white hair appears among the demons. The mysterious girl just stands there, looking at the scene with an empty, emotionless gaze. The demon leader is startled to see the girl and asks how long she has been standing there. He finds it impossible that the girl could have crossed that desert alone and without help. One of the minions suggests turning the child into a zombie, but the boss doesn't like the idea. The skeleton then says the girl is useless and orders his servants to deal with her. The zombies then advance and grab the child forcefully to carry out the boss's order. The creatures attack mercilessly and seem to be overwhelming the small, defenseless girl. The boss then tells them to stop that and get to the church as planned. He repeats the order more firmly, but the zombies don't seem to be listening. Annoyed, he yells, asking if they didn't hear, and suddenly flowers begin to sprout on them. The leader is confused, seeing his minions covered in flowers and falling over. Suddenly, a shot hits the skeleton demon's head squarely, and it explodes on the spot. It was Vincent, who appeared out of nowhere, and shot the monster leader without a second thought. He picks up the talking skull, and complains about it causing trouble while he was away. Scared, the skull tells him to look, and the officer and the nun also look in that direction. They are surprised to see the little girl alive, and with red flowers sprouting from her body. Petals fall around the girl, and the officer realizes the child was alive the whole time. Vincent believes that because she overcame the demons, she might be something close to an angel. The hunter then turns to the mysterious little girl and asks what she really is. The girl then opens her arms and makes a strange gesture without saying a single word. The officer thinks it's the letter T, and the nun thinks it's a cross, but Vincent remains silent. Unceremoniously, the demon hunter simply picks the little girl up by her clothes. He then puts the mysterious child inside the briefcase the officer was carrying before. After putting the girl inside, the man closes and locks the case so she can't get out. Vincent says he needs to contact the Vatican, and the officer calls him a kidnapper. He explains that it's to avoid problems in case the girl decides to run away again. Suddenly, the child emits a bright light, and the frightened officer jumps onto the priest's shoulder. The young woman says the girl doesn't want to go back, and Vincent gets annoyed with the situation. The scene then shifts to a big city with many buildings and a sunny sky. In a dark alley, a pair of thugs watches a muscular man standing at the far end. The brute complains that the people he's waiting for are already very late. Further ahead, 2 other strange guys seem to be standing guard in the alley. The man wonders if he gave the boys too difficult a task and calls one of them. The 2 guards approach and warn him that the alley is Red Faction territory. The muscular guy smiles and apologizes, saying he was just waiting to meet someone. One of the thugs then pulls out a weapon and says that there is, in fact, a problem. The henchman calls him an idiot for drinking expensive coffee in an alley like that. The other thug tells him not to scare the man too much so he doesn't make a mess in their territory. Quickly, the muscular man grabs the thug's weapon with incredible speed. With a swift move, he disarms the henchman, who is left completely stunned. The coffee cup the man was holding ends up falling to the ground in all the commotion. The thug's partner screams in fear while the other one is shocked that he fired. A bullet hole appears on the muscular man's chest, which bleeds a little. The brute says that whoever pulls a weapon has to see it through, and the thug panics. He adds that only the weak use weapons to intimidate those around them. With his eyes red with rage, he calls the 2 of them useless and insignificant creatures. The head of the bandit with the weapon simply vanishes, and the other one falls to the ground in terror. The man looks at the 2 bodies on the ground and says his minions will have to go instead. He then orders his demonic crows to search for the keys inside the bus. If the keys aren't there, he orders them to find out who's responsible no matter what. The brute then turns to the thug who was left and stares at him with a serious look. Smiling, he says he's bored and offers to buy the guy a coffee to keep him company.